Despite what the legacy media may want you to believe from their scaremongering, this year, as with every year, we have much to give thanks for here in America. As our nation looks forward to its 250th anniversary of its founding next year, we also can look back over the past 249 years, and we can plainly see that God has blessed this country, and we have a lot to be grateful for. So what are some of the most awe-inspiring examples of God's grace and blessings on our country? Well, here now to share more about those miraculous moments is my friend and former colleague, Congressman Barry Loudermilk. He represents the 11th Congressional District of my home state of Georgia. He's also the author of the book, And Then They Prayed, Moments in American History Impacted by Prayer. It's soon going to have its 250th edition, and you want to be sure to get it. Congressman Loudermilk, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to see you, my friend.
Jody, it's so good to see you. Really do miss you here in the House, but I know you're doing what God's called you to do, and so we're really proud of you.
Well, thank you, and I know you're doing what God called you to do as well, and so our prayers are with you and all those who are serving our country in these difficult days. But Barry, I just want to say thank you. This is such a powerful book that you have written. My wife and I have so thoroughly enjoyed it. Extremely well written, powerful stories. And as we come to celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you and your family have had a wonderful day. But let's start with some of the stories that have stood out to you the most in our nation's past.
Well, one thing I'd like to start with is people ask me why you write this book. And if it's important that we understand our past so we know where to go in the future. The book of Ecclesiastes tells us that there is nothing new under the sun. It says what will happen has already happened. And if we're going to take this country that no one ever expected to survive 250 years, if we're going to take it another 250, 10 or 15 or even 2 years, we have to look back to see what sustained us for the first 250. And that has been divine providence delivered through prayer. And so I felt it was just so important that these stories that I heard about growing up from a dad who was a World War II veteran, he came from that greatest generation. These stories were well known, and I was never taught them in school. So we spent 10 years, my family and I, researching these stories. They're very well documented, and they're absolutely true. And they just show God's divine intervention and how he does personally engage with us. And he does want our nation to continue and our freedoms to still be acknowledged. And there's stories from 1746 all the way up into the 20th century. And probably two of them that stand out to me, they're all favorites of mine. But there's one I was just sharing with a couple of people earlier this week, and they were shocked. They've never heard this, and it's a 20th century story from the Apollo space mission. And this is more of a story of how prayer was such a strong influence in our country, even into the 1960s and 70s. It was around that time that we started departing from this faith that grounded us as a nation. And this was the Apollo 8 space mission, which was the first time that a human has ever left the gravitational field of the moon. This was the predecessor. It was the first test flight, left the gravitational field of the Earth. We were going to the moon. And it was the first time that we were going to go and orbit the moon. It was a test run for what everybody remembers, the Apollo 11 landing. One of the things, though, is they had accelerated the mission. It was going several months earlier than what they had planned because the Soviets had started making some advancements, and, we needed to be there first. And they realized they were going to be orbiting the moon on Christmas Day. And so the crew was given a responsibility that weighed very heavy on them, which is, what are they going to say at that historic moment? Because that was going to be the most televised and listened to event in world history. The entire world would be watching and listening for what these astronauts said as they came around the backside of the moon. And so Frank Borman, the commander, he struggled about that more than he did even the mission itself, because it was such an important statement to make. And the people all across the world were listening for this. And when they came around the backside of the moon, what they did was read the first 3 verses from Genesis. And that shocked the world, that God created the heavens and the earth. It was literally earth-shattering when the voice came across Mission Control. In fact, Gene Kranz, most people remember him as he was the flight director during the ill-fated Apollo 13 mission. A movie was made about him. He was a stone-cold leader who was, he coined the phrase, failure is not an option. He said after hearing that, there was not a dry eye in Mission Control, and he said you could feel the Spirit of God in the room in Houston. And just such a fabulous story just illustrates that how faith played such a regular part in everyday life. And I'd say one of the others is from our own Civil War, and it happened in our home state of Georgia at Andersonville Prison Camp. And what's so neat about this story is you can still go there and witness this divine act of God. If you've seen the movie, you know the conditions. The prison was overcrowded. Prisoners were dying at the rate of 100 per day, and most of it was because of thirst. There was no clean source of water. The only water, which was Stockade Creek, was a cesspool. And it was known among the prisoners, the Union prisoners there, that if you wanted to get out of this prison, all you had to do was take one sip out of Stockade Creek and you'd be carried to the dead house. That's how filthy it was. So Private Tannehill from Illinois decided he needed to do something about this. So he organized a prayer service one afternoon at an area they called the Tabernacle, which was where a tree had fallen down in a storm, and where the roots were made a little hole in the ground, and they had started having some church services there. So he called everyone together to pray that, for one thing, that God would deliver them from their thirst. And they prayed, and they decided they were going to pray until something happened. And it had been about an hour of praying when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, one of those South Georgia thunderstorms just rolls in. You know what I'm talking about. They seem to just pop up from nowhere. Well, they thought, hey, this is good. We'll get a little bit of rain. If we can capture it, that will be some water. But they weren't praying just for temporary relief. They were praying for permanent relief. What happened next was documented by hundreds. It was witnessed by thousands. While they were praying, a bolt of lightning struck inside the stockade wall, inside the camp, hit the ground, and where the lightning struck, erupted a fountain of pure water, clean water.
Wow. God
delivered in a miraculous way. And if you go to the Andersonville Prison Camp State Park, or National Park right now, there is a monument there that was built in the early 1900s honoring God's divine providence. They call it Providence Spring. And Jody, that spring's still flowing today. You can go and see that spring, on Thanksgiving Day in 2025 if you want.
Absolutely amazing. Well, Barry, I want to, again, thank you for writing this book. Just today, my wife mentioned how much that book has meant to her. I want to thank you, and I want to encourage everyone to get a copy. And then they prayed. Barry, real quickly, tell us where people can get a copy of it, and then tell us, we've got less than a minute to go, what your prayer is for our country going into this new year.
Well, my prayer is that God will continue to lead us in what I think is we're experiencing the onset of a new revival in this country, a return to those basic core principles. It's hard for people to see because the attack that Christians are under, that we're under, but it reminds me of something that my dad told me as a World War II veteran. He said the enemy fought the hardest when we were taking their ground. So I feel like we have started this new revival and a return to those basic principles, and I just pray that continues. The book is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, and it's actually starting to be stocked in some bookstores. We reached national bestseller status just a few weeks ago. God is really blessed, and my objective is to get this in as many hands as we can of people throughout this nation so they can understand that God is still alive and well and working in our country today.
He is. Absolutely. Congressman Barry Loudermilk, happy Thanksgiving to you and your dear family. Love to all of them. Thank you for joining us today on Washington Watch.